Welcome back to the Thinc Conversations. Still with us, it's the erudite Professor Busani Ngcaweni. You'd appreciate that he might be a loss to the public service, having left it last month, and he went to academia, but he's a gain to those that must learn about what is happening in the public service. And Prof, this thing of bureaucratic discretion, if I would expand it a little bit, and you've spoken about it earlier on, the Constitution actually obligates public servants, and I want to talk about those that in higher echelons, to loyally execute the policies of the government of the day. We are now at the stage where we're having the government of national unity. We're having a fruit salad of executive authority.
Yeah.
You've got the executive authority, which is now diffused into a number of political parties. They have their own political mandates, and we are in a very interesting phase of our democracy. Is it not time that the good measure of a good public servant, especially at the high level, should actually be the ability of that public servant to implement the lawful policies of the government of the day? And by lawful, I mean what the Constitution and the laws allows. Is this possible given the history of transformation that went in the country? I mean, we have had public servants that went in there because of their political allegiance and all those things, and the challenge is that will they be able to implement policies of the party that some of them have taken a sworn oath never to support? How has the National School of Government engaged with this unfolding? It's an unfolding reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Firstly, I think that the chapter 10 of the Constitution is one of the least developed chapters of the Constitution. You know, besides the Public Service Act and maybe PAMA, and maybe, in fact, the local government legislation emerges out of a different chapter, you know, altogether. It's one of the least developed chapter of the Constitution. It is only now that the Public Service Commission, which is founded through Chapter 10, and its mandate written there, it's only now that a legal instrument is being designed for it, 30 years late. Because we identified it in the framework, and the Commission said we need this type of a law, and now it is being augmented. So I think there's a lot that needs to happen to develop this part, because it will sharpen some of these so-called contradictions if others think of it that way. You are correct that says we must loyally execute. Here is the issue. That particular clause we are reading about, it is not even a preamble of the performance agreements of HODs. Is it not counterintuitive that it features nowhere? Instead, what features the most in the performance agreement will be secondary legislation. PFMA, SMS Handbook, Public Service Act, and so on. It doesn't feature there. So we are not measured on the Constitution. We are measured on the imaginations of an administration that wrote a Public Service Act and PAMA and so on. That is a fundamental flaw, which is the same even for ministers as well, because they must be measured based on the Constitution first and foremost, and then you can waterfall from there. I don't think there are tensions everywhere. In fact, we are not the only Constitution. Many others in the world have got a similar clause. The discretion I must have as a DG is when the mandate has been declared by the government of the day, that is what must be done, including the target. I must be able to bureaucratically command the machinery and mobilize the resources toward the attainment of that particular goal. If the mandate is to build 100 houses, remember the victory is not mine. Of course, the AG will give me a clean audit, a good performance scoring. But it is you as a politician, because you will have met your objective. So it's very mutually reinforcing. You know, there are instances, like in places like China, where you actually have people who are very powerful in the core of the administration because they've moved through the party system, and they occupy levels where they could be a chief director, and they know what their roles and responsibilities are at that level, and their accountability mechanisms have been built into it. But it's, as I said, it's beyond just the law. We have to build these soft institutions, including the ethos that say, if I am a head of department, I'm mandated to turn the institution around. I must just do that. If I'm unable to, I must mobilize the resources to aid me in doing so, and not be comfortable with the fact that as a head of department, I have less labor tensions, I did not get a qualified audit, and so on. We have to be motivated by something grand, you know. I mean, that's my view as people who lead institutions. There must be something grand. There must be something noble that must motivate you to lead an institution. Otherwise, just be a specialist elsewhere. Don't lead if you can't lead.
You know, Prof, there is a view that says people or appropriately qualified individuals should be commissioned into the public service. It's a very interesting view that is starting to emerge in the discourse of public service and public administration. To say we're at a stage in our democracy where people must be commissioned into the public service. And when you are commissioned, you then work on the basis of the laws that you find where you are commissioned. You don't change them. And that's the constitution and legislation and whatever. But there is also a view that says people should be deployed into the Public Service Commission, which means they go there with a mandate of where they are being deployed into that. And then you find that there's a tension of the laws that apply where you're supposed to be commissioned, and there are obligations that apply from where you are deployed. How do we deal with this? Because it's a very big thing. In local government now, it's worse because you find a lot of people still operate in the mindset that they are deployed into the municipality when actually the laws are saying, hey, you are commissioned to come and do work according to the law. How do we deal with that in terms of these two views which are becoming interesting? Yeah.
Well, I suppose it's also depend on the maturity in the system. Also, you can use either with great success or with gigantic failure as well. Part of the problem in South Africa is one that is least spoken about. The reason why we've got weak public institution is also because the economy is not working. So we have people who ought to be mechanics running municipalities, right? If the economy was working and working effectively, some of those people ought to be working at Corobrick, at Matches, Lion Match, as fitters and turners and so on, and they are running municipalities. It's a reality because the public sector still had an absorptive capacity for a longest period, and if you're a politician, we can be able to navigate the system and we can end up being an MMC. That is a reality, with due respect to them. But regardless of the system you have, if you don't build these soft institutions that help you navigate those tensions, it will not succeed because you can never have a crystal clear roles and delineation and so on. The people who think they are deployed, usually who use the fact that I am deployed in this position, whether administratively or politically, those are the people who have an inferiority complex because they lack the skill. They lack the duty to care skill and diligence. So what they will do is to deal with you, Mathebula, by saying, I am deployed there. He has nothing else to offer. He can't drive strategy. He can't effectively manage the institution. He can't mobilize people. He can't manage the resources. Because all of us need a certain way of measure of power and authority. So if my reference to how I got here is what gives me power over you, I will then apply that to you. That's part of what needs to be fixed, and you can only fix it through these soft institutions. That is why I am arguing, even if you have someone who might have been a taxi driver, like I did that myself when I was trying to get money to go to school, someone who can come up as a taxi driver into the mayoral suit, as it were. The responsibility of the municipal manager and the top managers is to study this politician. Who is this person? What are the capabilities that they have? Maybe they have great power to mobilize. Use that as the strength of the mayor to turn around the fortunes of the municipality and not have a low opinion of them. Once you begin to treat them as a taxi driver or as a rank manager, they will do the same. They will retaliate, and they will lose their power of being a rank manager, and there's going to be a conflict in the institution. So by building soft institutions about how we relate, agreeing on the culture in the institution, agreeing on what we want to achieve. Me, as a municipal manager, as a teacher, as a CEO, I need to achieve the corporate plan, the APP. You need to achieve the political mandate, and the two are not mutually, exclusive. Then let's work towards their attainment. I have found now, even with the GNU, I did 32 strategic plans of government departments and SOEs during this period of the GNU before I left. I worked with opposition. In fact, I told one minister who was historically in the opposition benches, I said, Minister, we as DGs, we hear some of you said we must be fired. We're not scared of you. We have seen the West even during a different political system. The idea is, how do we build a relationship, understand what cabinet has decided as being a legal mandate of the government of the day, and we must effectively execute it. And it's a win-win.
Yes, and thank you, Professor Busani. I think you have cleared some gray areas, and this subject, it's a very big subject. This country needs to talk about these things, and the assumption should always be that the country has one national vision. Yeah. Because if we have one national vision as a society, politicians and administrators will actually know what is in the national interest and not what is in the factional interest of political parties or particular bureaucrats who come with interests that are not building the nation. And in that instance, you will recognize that our Constitution is very clear. Our Constitution, the second sentence says we must recognize the injustices of the past, and then it says public representatives must actually work towards healing the divisions of the past so that the country can live with human dignity and all those things.
And that must be in the performance contract of every minister.
And that brings us to the end of today's conversations with Professor Ngcaweni. The public service is the most permanent mind of the state. It is by law designed to loyally execute the lawful policies of the government of the day. We will invite the Public Service Commission to come here and clear some of the things with the public service and some of the public servants that have demonstrated that they can loyally execute. This is Lucky Mathebula. Until next time, thank you.